I think on the coaching side, I mean, we've 3x our revenue from last year, and we only started our company 3 years ago. I mean, they're seeing all of that, but they're not seeing where it all started. It all started with my mom and dad fought about money a lot. And in fact, that was a main contentious situation in our home. I lived in apartments from the age of essentially from 3, maybe 4 years old to the age of 14. So I actually lived in most of these apartments that I'm buying nowadays.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. You know, as time goes on here, I'm really starting to see so many similarities in high performance people, in people who are successful, people who are happy. That's really important too. And it comes down to it. It's all coming back to mindset and what's going on in our minds. And there are things going on in my minds, obviously, that we don't know about. There are things that we know about, some things we're trying to fix. And how did they get there? Today, we had a wonderful conversation with the guest about, hey, what is our path? And what are some of these limiting beliefs that are holding us back? And do we even know that they're there? What are we doing? What is it that we're driving for? What is it we're reaching for? Ultimately, this is going to include real estate. This is going to include the medicine path, entrepreneurship. It's just an amazing conversation today. Today, we're speaking with a trained cardiologist and functional medicine physician. He's an international speaker, high performance coach, and real estate expert. So there's so many accolades around today's guest. I'm so excited to bring him on. Please welcome Dr. Vikram Raya to the show. All right, here we are. Welcome to the show, Vikram. Today, where are you coming to us from?
Brett, man, thanks for having me on the show. I'm beaming in from Northern Virginia near DC.
Northern Virginia, yes, and welcome to the show. Thank you for your time. I know I was just listening to the, every now and then when I'm eating lunch, I kind of scroll through YouTube, and this thing that pops up all the time now is Stoicism. Have you gotten into any of that before?
Yeah, big fan of Stoicism. I'm listening to I think Courage is Calling. I believe it's a book by the Stoic the modern day Stoic that we're all following. I think his name's Holiday. It's
Ryan Holiday, I think.
Ryan Holiday. Yes, that's right.
Very cool.
He's doing like a lot of the virtues, and one of them is courage. And so, yeah, I think Courage is Calling is his latest book, one of his latest books.
I absolutely love it. And why I mention that is just the timepiece and making sure that we value time in the right way and staying present in all of those pieces, just to express further my gratitude for your time and attention here today. I know you've got a lot going on, so let's jump right into it, Vikram. Why don't you start off with just telling us a little bit about your medical background, because between medicine and real estate and entrepreneurial activities, man, you got it going on. So let's tell us a little bit about medicine first. Where did it start and where you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I wanted to get into the field because one, there's 3 options for people out there in the Indian community, the South Asian community. You're a lawyer, you're a doctor, or you're a loser. So options were quite limited. But I'm in all seriousness, it was something I was interested in. Obviously got encouraged by my parents, but then once I got into it, it made a lot of sense because, I'm analytical, but I love people and I like to solve problems. And, I just want to up level what I'm working on, which is that case, it was a person. I wanted to get them to their highest and best level of health. And while I was doing it, it made a lot of sense. And I had several family members who had heart attacks in my family. So learning cardiology was really important for me. When I got into the field, it wasn't all that it cracked up to be. I felt the wealth was sort of capped. I felt the workload was quite high. I have 2 young boys, and now they're 10 and 12, and I really wanted to spend time with them. That was very important. My wife also is a physician, and so our life was quite busy. And so I was wondering, will this get me to my goal? Will the being a cardiologist, which is great in most people's end game, was actually I realized that was not my end game. That's my starting game. And I was like, there must be other things out there. And I started exploring. I started like a medical staffing company. While I was training, I did options trading and I got my butt handed to me. And then I got suckered into this wholesaling thing, which is like essentially flipping deals. I never got it off the ground because it was too labor and time intensive while in between seeing patients. Then I settled on a little bit of fix and flipping, which was great, got me to a certain basis. But then heard a man speak about multifamily and syndications, and I thought, oh, that might be the vehicle to really busting out of the typical plateau that all physicians face, which is high income, low net worth.
High income, low net worth. Absolutely. I get the opportunity to speak with a lot of physicians and enjoy hearing journeys and I guess experiences around that. And from the spectrum too. First of all, let me correct myself because I asked you how to pronounce your name correctly. And then I said it the way I wanted to say it anyway. Vikram is the correct way to say your name.
That's right, brother. That's right. Thank you. Man,
come on. So I'll get it beat into me. So on this path, we speak with all ends of the spectrum coming in, even in, as in med school, just in residency. And then when things flip and you become this high earner, we have this, there's a hole, whether it's because of the time or the attention or the priority we place on the financial piece of it, this hole in the education and experience of what to do with that high income. So we talk a lot about creating this path, and converting that high income to high net worth, where you just ended up there on your last line. And interesting too to see going through the single family kind of jump into multifamily. And Vikram, that what you say about wholesaling is no joke. Like it is no joke. It is labor intensive. It is money intensive. I mean, you could go out and put bandit signs up. If it's single family, that is, you could go out and put bandit signs up and run ads and Craigslist. Is Craigslist even a thing anymore? I don't even know. And do things on social media, but you're not really getting to that point of basically takeoff where you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars in marketing. And it's just hard for a physician to be a full-time real estate investor, in the fix and flip, wholesaling part, and be a physician, not only just physician, but a top level physician. In that too. So I hear that often where I tried this. And probably did you work with somebody on that wholesaling piece to kind of get you started?
Yeah. I mean, I went to, there used to be these things called RIAs. I don't know if they exist any longer, but they're real estate investment associations where it was just essentially a rowdy bunch of people who wanted money in real estate, and people around them used to think they're weird. And so they decided to congregate themselves together. I was a proud member of that group. And, you got different speakers coming in. Obviously, the guy who ran the RIA tried to monetize it a little bit. But overall, it was like a place where you started learning information. You started hearing about these investors. And I remember I'd be like starry eyed, and this guy like, oh, I closed on a 20 unit, or I flipped 5 houses, or, man, I'm making $10,000 a month. And it was like a different world. And then as you start getting into it, you separate the hype from the truth, and you're like, all right, what am I really about? What is this all about? And so, and the real estate thing was not the end game. It was a vehicle, because I really wanted to, I started getting interested in a different form of medicine. I was into human optimization. I was into biohacking. I was into functional medicine. So I got trained on top of cardiology as a functional medicine specialist. So fancy word for Brett has diabetes because he eats too much bonbons and is overweight. He could either take insulin and metformin, or he can go through Vicks, 3-month program, get his body fat down, improve his insulin sensitivity, learn how to eat, learn how to do yoga, learn how to work out, take like nutraceuticals and other type of supplements that can make him more insulin sensitive in a faster way, and AKA reverse diabetes in 90 days. And so that's what we ended up doing: reverse diabetes, hypertension. I help people get off a lot of their blood pressure medications, and people were like feeling phenomenal. So to do that kind of clinic, which is usually cash based, you needed a source of income to be able to pay your mortgage, be able to make sure your wife and you slept well at night, and take that entrepreneurial risk. And so that's when I jumped into multifamily. ended up buying. So at first I had to learn to raise capital because I had no clue how to do that. So I did that a couple of times. And then me and a partner of mine, at that point I realized, hey, to get to your dreams, you need a team. Hey, multifamily is a team sport. Found another real estate oriented physician. He was a good buddy of mine. He also ended up becoming my business partner, and we started Viking Capital together, which is my current multifamily syndication company. And that was really meant to be just the means to an end so I can launch this clinic. And the clinic was successful. Everything was great. This was a little side hustle we did on the side. Ended up doing a couple of deals as a co-GP, and then actually started doing our own deals. Pandemic happened, and I had to close my clinic down. But then the real estate just took off. So then I'm like, all right, maybe my side hustle is no longer a side hustle anymore. And so I ended up shifting into that full time. The clinic is still running more of a teleclinic and is more in the background. And then the final opportunity, or not the final, but the third opportunity came on my plate. All these doctors across the country wanted to ask me questions. They wanted me to help them, support them, maybe give them strategy or advice. And before long, I realized I ended up becoming a coach, a high performance coach for doctors who wanted more than just the 9-to-5, the W-2. And so now that's what I do. I run my private equity real estate company, and I help these doctors all over the country and getting into a little more thought leadership and that kind of stuff. And then obviously fun stuff, get to travel the world with the kids and my wife, and into Brazilian jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai kickboxing, and I climb mountains. I've done Kilimanjaro. I'm about to do Rainier with our common friend, the freedom physician, Larry Daugherty.
Yeah.
You know? So so that's where I am right now.
Man, now you're able to be present, live in the moment, and enjoy your happiness today. That's awesome. Traveling. And what I love about that whole path there is when you started talking about the biohacking and creating this different path, healing the person, I hear the like attacking the problem and not the symptom, right? You're finding ways in that clinic to help people with the problem that persists in them, and not just addressing the symptom caused by that's caused by the problem. And now in that flip, you're like doing that with real estate investors, probably, because you're not just a real estate coach, you're a high performance coach. So it's linking many pieces together. I see a similarity in that. Just like to the business that you're doing with the diabetes.
Yeah. So, that's a really keen insight, Brett. So I think it's the way to approach, folks. Like when they come in, I do sort of a holistic 360-degree assessment of them. I'm looking at their family life. I'm looking at their time management skills. I'm looking at their health, their vitality. I'm looking at their real estate portfolio. I'm looking at their stock portfolio. And getting this full on 360 view, then I actually figure out where they want to go. A lot of times they're like, oh, I want to make $100,000. Oh, I want to leave my day job, or I want to practice part time. But really, that's not what they want. What they really want is they want freedom, right? And we've sort of distilled it down to sort of the top 5 freedoms that most people want. And there's variations on the theme, but you get the general gist. One is time freedom. And you mentioned time several times. So I think you truly do live in the present moment. And in fact, I'll tell you a story. A good buddy of mine, he has a watch on his desktop, and it keeps clicking away, and it's a mortality watch.
Yes,
right? It's like when he plans to die, and that's how much time he has left.
Yeah.
So time freedom.
Yeah.
Second is financial freedom, and this is what people say they want, but in the end, I know they want more than that, or they need more than that. So then we talk about vitality freedom, really having this bulletproof physical vitality, because I think energy is the newest currency, right? They're printing money. They're not printing vitality. They're not printing time. Mm-hmm. So, and then finally, it's that having that bulletproof mindset. And then just for fun, wouldn't it be great to be able to work from anywhere in the world, to have that geographic or location freedom? So those are the 5 freedoms that I believe in. And so it helps define my life. My goal is to have those, and things that take me toward it, I do. And things that don't, I say no to.
Yeah. And saying no is one of those key and crucial things to be able to do that and focus yourself and understand on the why pieces of it. Because even though there's still 5 freedoms there, Vikram, we could still break it down to the why on each one of those, and they may all link back to the same thing. When I hear you say that, you get to travel around and spend time with the family, the kids, and man, that's amazing. And that's so much of those 5 freedoms can come back and funnel back down to that one basic why, because I hear it a lot too is, okay, you want to make more money. You want passive income. Well, what are you going to do with more money? What are you going to do with more time? Right. And I'm going to spend more time with my family. That's awesome. Well, we're starting to kind of like put these 5 things together and find that one bucket where that true happiness lives, The
other thing, Brent, I've noticed is everyone says, yeah, I want passive income. I want passive income. Well, in reality, nothing is really truly passive. But that being said, I think what they're saying is they want non-clinical income. And so I think some people are better served actually being a little more active because especially if they're starting late, because you get a little bit more and you have more control and you can get there. Other times, passive is the way to go. And maybe it's a hybrid. Maybe you do have a active arm, but you also are doing things passive as well. So it doesn't matter. Real estate is the most powerful wealth creation vehicle on the planet for the last 5,000 years. You should get into it.
That's awesome. I love hearing you say that. I had a wonderful guest on a few episodes ago and believed the complete opposite. And I welcomed the conversation because I have childlike curiosity constantly, and I always want to see things and understand perspectives, and I keep an open mind. So in that conversation was showing me why or how do you see it that way? Because if there's something I'm not seeing, I want to see it. And I want to have those kinds of conversations to keep growing constantly. And what you're saying about the passive versus active and kind of like finding these hybrids, it's definitely about where you are and where you want to be when you're looking at your strategies. Ultimately they all have to align with your values, but picking that one direction that fits with you currently, and you've got a target or a goal lined up that is going to fit where you want to be, right, when you get there. So it can be as passive as it can be, because you are absolutely right. There's no such thing as passive income. And even though, like LPs, limited partnerships are probably one of the more passive scenarios, short of giving your money directly to a financial advisor and letting him tell you what happened with it last year. Right. But you still, in order to do your due diligence, in order to care for your money, because nobody's going to care more about your money than you do, you have to put some time into it. You should always be learning. If you don't have the time to be active, you should always put priority on learning so that way you can maximize what you are doing with your time.
Yeah. Our good friend Kiyosaki always says it's not the investment that's risky, it's the investor. Mm-hmm. It's because of lack of knowledge. And they don't teach us in medical school, guys. So definitely bone up.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't stop learning. I mean, I'm not a physician myself, Vikram. And I say that a lot just because I don't want it to ever seem like I am in these scenarios. I don't know exactly what physicians go through, but I have an idea, and that what it takes in your education career to get to the path that you've honed in on, it takes a lot. And the thing I always say too is don't stop learning. Take a 1-degree pivot, take that same drive and passion and capacity and ability that you have and put a new subject in front of you, right? Don't just give up and say, oh, I don't have time for this. I'll do this in 5 years. I'll do this when I have more time, right? Just don't give up. Make a 1-degree pivot and keep pressing.
I would say most physicians, and I would probably lump in other high income earners, and I call these guys power earners. Most power earners, they peak at 40, but they get buried at 80.
What do you mean by that?
They're growing, they're active. Then they finally hit that comfort zone, which happens in their late 30s and early 40s. Mm-hmm. And they might not be fully fulfilled, but they're going to just keep living per se, but they're not really living. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And then they finally quote unquote die, but they've really died a long time ago.
Yeah. And in my personal experience, seeing people, how their lives change and how certain health things creep out at retirement. Like when somebody retires, it's almost like there's something that happens in the body that just says, okay, I made it. And then it allows, I don't know if it has something to do with gene triggering. I don't know what it is. I'm not a physician, but something crazy happens when somebody makes it to that point of retire. All of a sudden now here comes the health issues, right? Here comes things that I think that drive or that passion or that push in regular life keeps things away.
Yeah. I think, as you're mentioning, it's comfort and stagnation. In the fourth and fifth decades of life is quite common among a lot of folks, because they don't want to take a risk, because they quote unquote made it, because they're comfortable, because, why break a good thing? Why, if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. And so they coast, and then the coast in the end, they betray their inner greatness.
Yep. I have this constant driving passion. And right now, while we're recording this, I mean, I turned 43 this year, so I don't know what it's like to be 50 or 60 or anything, but man, at this pace, there's something inside of me that just doesn't let up. And I guess it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, because what that thing in me, that drive in me, keeps me learning. It keeps me pushing. It keeps me wanting to finish first. Also takes away from me and my family when I let it. So it's just like this interesting, I say it could be a blessing or a curse, this thing, this high performance thing,
So but when I talk to my high performers out there, and sometimes I'm coaching them up there, I'm like, what's your superpower and what's the dark side to your superpower? And so, probably people are listening to this like, these guys, man, they're just all about go, go, go. They're not at peace, or their kids probably don't know them, all that kind of stuff. But really, yeah, we all have that dark side, that superpower that's really powerful. But if we don't control it or know how to use it the right way, there's a dark side to it. And even with the most top athletes out there, are the same thing. Like, there's a dark side to everyone's superpower. We've seen it with, and who's the golfer? Tiger Woods, and you've seen it in Kobe and all that, but it's a yin and yang. You got to harness it versus let it overwhelming you, but that's that edge that got you through medical school. That's the edge that got you into your residency and your fellowship or whatever else, and got you your first job and helped you go 80 hours, a week and take call every third day, but you were able to pull it off. Why not use that same edge into something else that can potentially help free you? So medicine is a pleasure and is a privilege, and you do it on your terms versus a mandate.
Yeah, and it's kind of like leading right into the mindset piece, because it's almost, it is. It's limiting. There's limited beliefs that we have, whether they happen in the first 7 years of our life, or we're conditioned throughout our family, our colleagues, to not venture off into this other world that we've talked about it as in real estate. And we have these ideas of it being risky, because it's still considered. How long has this been around, Vikram? And it's still considered an alternative investment, right? It's fascinating. It's mind blowing. And we're conditioned to say, okay, maybe that's not for me. That's difficult. Well, my financial advisor doesn't deal with that. I'm just going to stay in my 401k and just set it and forget it kind of deal. So kind of getting over these limiting beliefs. And I know you talk a lot about mindset growth. Where does that come in? And where do you start working with somebody? Obviously they're at a high performance spot. Like, you've gotten there, you've done something right to get there. Where are some of these blocks that you see when it comes to mindset growth?
There's three main abundance blocks, Brett, that I see among folks, and I myself had them, and I had to overcome them. First is really like, it's more physical abundance block. The second one is sort of a mindset abundance block, and the third one is more of like a subconscious one. So the physical one is like, oh, I don't know what to do. It's very like, okay, you should first pay off debt. You should then save money, emergency fund, a lot of the sort of the basic high level strategies. And then it's, all right, how do millionaires think? Like, do you read Elon Musk's newest biography on by Walter Isaacson, or Steve Jobs, or like Steven Schwartzman of, all these like private equity groups, and you just start thinking like them, and you see how they think, and Jeff Bezos, and all right, I see they think differently than the herd, right? And you start having contrarian or anti-herd thinking, which is very powerful. And then there's the subconscious stuff. The subconscious stuff is what no one talks about on any podcast or any show, or even, among dinner conversations. They are really, how did my mom and dad think, and how did that imprint upon my subconscious brain? How are the wealth wounds that I'm carrying from my religion, my culture, my circle, right? Hey, that's not for us. That's not how we do things. Or, hey, no one in our family has ever done that. Or, all of that kind of social imprinting on our brain. And so even when we try to go after things that we want, like, hey, I tried doing real estate investing, just didn't work for me, all that, it pulls us back. And until we uncover what's going on below the surface, deep below the surface, we're not going to be able to unlock that and really hit that next level of growth. They're saying we're not really a thermometer, we're a thermostat. And the question is really, where is that thermostat set? If it's always set at 70 degrees and, you want to get to 75 degrees, you want to kick on the heater, but because it's at 70, the heater will never turn on beyond 70. If you go drop below, yes, it will turn on because, hey, that's not acceptable. But once you hit 70, that's comfortable. That's good enough. And it's really unlocking these three levels of blocks.
I love that. And I've heard Ed Milet talk about the thermostat piece. And man, I just love it how it's basically like this image we carry of ourself could be our thermostat. And like you're saying, if it's only set to a certain point, that's all we're ever going to get to. And you talked about reading the biographies or autobiographies of people who are already out there, have done this and are doing it, so we can learn how to adjust our thermostat. And, this reticular activating system, the thing in our head where now we've got this knowledge, we're talking about this knowledge, we're surrounding ourselves with the people who are doing, are practicing, are living and believing these things. We're going to start seeing these opportunities right there in front of us. And we have to get over those limiting beliefs. And for me, man, I'm still trying to figure that stuff out. I always tell everybody, I come from, a little tiny place that has nothing. My parents still live check to check and will work until they die. And when I look back now from where I'm at to living there in that position, I'm trying to figure out what it was when you talk about like this conditioning that was passed on from my parents in my life. And, that self-reflection is so big when we're trying to figure these things out. And I've talked with some amazing people, some amazing coaches like yourself, figuring this stuff out. And it comes back down and you get this moment where it's like, holy cow, could that really be what has held me back for this long? Without having it. And for me, I think something broke in me because I feel like I completely forgot everything. Everything that I was conditioned to believe about money and how we got it, how we didn't get it, collections, all of this stuff that I experienced as a kid. I don't know if it was the torment or what happened in my life. It just like poof, but every now and then it will still sneak up. And those moments of self-realization are really cool because when you can feel it and sense it and know that that's a difference, that's not me. That's not who I am. And guess what that is, Vikram? That's my thermostat saying, nope, not me, not today,
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. And the thing is, like, people see my success. I think Viking now, we just launched our 25th multifamily deal. We've done $750 million of deal acquisitions. We've raised $250 million of real private equity money, and I think on the coaching side, I mean, we've 3x our revenue from last year, and we only started our company 3 years ago. I mean, they're seeing all of that, but they're not seeing where it all started. It all started with my mom and dad fought about money a lot. And in fact, that was a main contentious situation in our home. I lived in apartments from the age of essentially from 3, maybe 4 years old to the age of 14. So I actually lived in most of these apartments that I'm buying nowadays. And so it's that I worked at my dad's convenience store growing up, right? All of that played a huge role. So I was like, man, when I want to make sure money's not a thing anymore. And now I'm at the point where, like, man, I live in abundance mindset. I'm like, I try to, help philanthropic organizations. We built a school in Bangladesh for Viking. We donate to so many charities, but really it's just like I try to make it where, like, money is not a thing, but it's an energy, it's a vibration, it's a frequency. And the more you circulate, the more generous you are, and the more it comes back to you. And that's the king. Like, why are we doing okay as a company in real estate? Is because for us to be successful, we have to make our investors successful. We have to make the tenants successful, the communities we buy in successful, the broker successful, the property management company successful. And it's just a win. There's not a loser in any of the transactions. And that's amazing. And that's that vibration, that frequency, that energy.
Maybe the seller, if you negotiate them down so far.
Yeah, but maybe, but as long as, I mean, hopefully he won't sell unless he has a profit too.
Yes, and
right?
Most times, they may be sitting on an equity turn, or hopefully the exit strategy still works, and you can both find that painful point where it works for both people. Success leaves clues. I know you've heard that before, and that's why, when earlier you mentioned physicians are asking you, "Hey, what's going on? How are you doing this?" And those numbers that you just mentioned, those are massive, massive numbers. And just in case anybody didn't catch that one, it was billion, $250 million raised. Not million, $250 million. Those are massive numbers. And that's empirical evidence that what you're doing is working. And that's why people are reaching out. And that's why we're able to share and start now reflecting this vibration, right, of giving back. There's a point I feel in our lives where, I guess for me, it was a Zig Ziglar line, the stop selling and start helping. And when you get to that point, it's just like things change. And I am far from the wealthiest person in the world, let alone maybe even on my street. I'm far from the wealthiest one on my street. But man, I'm happy. I'm happy where I'm at. And there's a point where where money disappears. I think the idea of money, it disappears where I'm happy. In happiness, I believe that the money thing does disappear. And it's so far from where we started. And thank you so much for sharing that information about, your life and your beginning, because you're right. We don't talk about this. And for me and my family, when I say, hey, we didn't have anything, we lost a house to foreclosure. And then we, started going, every year we would move. And maybe those are the things that set that switch off in us. And maybe that's that point where, like, I'm never going back. I'm never turning back. And then even as I'm learning things, I'm telling things to my family, like, hey, try this, or hey, I just learned this. And then it's always like, no, why would you do that? And no, don't do that. Don't get in too deep. Don't do more than one at a time. You hear all of these things, and it's like, that's that point of realization again. It's like, wait, that right there, that's the difference. It's so cool to hear that and see that too. And thank you again for sharing that experience. And I'm thinking like more of those moments. I think we're all going to have these similarities, being able to see that conditioning, that family base. One other thing that we've talked.
I wanted to share just two other frameworks for your listeners. I think it'll be very helpful. The one framework that helped guide me is, when I do a business or a side hustle or something, I want it to be in my zone of genius. And so how do you recognize it? You'll recognize it externally because it's an ELF versus a half kind of endeavor. An ELF endeavor is easy, lucrative, and fun. And half is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. And so how do you find your ELF? And then here's the second framework. There's a concept called ikigai, which is a Japanese word for reason for being. And really it's the intersection of four sort of virtues or values in your life. And it's, what are you good at? What does the world need? What can you get paid for? And what are you really passionate about? Or what do you love? Mm-hmm. And if you can find that nexus, that synergy, that intersection, you're going to be sort of living the ideal life. You'll have a more fulfilling and probably more happier life than a billionaire, than a rock star, than an athlete, than like a presidential candidate. You're going to really be in your zone. And so if you can find that intersection of those four things, then you're going to go, that won't be work anymore. That will be play. And that's where you'll have unfair advantage, because you'll do it longer, better, faster, and you'll spend more time there. And that will give you that advantage over somebody who doesn't have that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think stumbling upon mine, and each day I get to practice, not only what I preach or what I teach by sharing my experience, but it just every day I feel like there's just this 1 degree pivot into something a little deeper. And I always feel like I'm not actually there yet. And that point of where I'm going of maybe what I've been designed to be or to do or a certain experience, I always want to feel like I'm prepared and I'm on the right path, but being present and just being happy in the moment and coming back to that point of, well, I am 100% content, but I'm not complacent.
I like that. That's a great quote. Content, but not complacent.
Yeah, for sure. Because just being happy with what we have, and man, I'm going to keep driving and pushing. I'm going to enjoy the path all the way. But there's so many things. Just like what you're saying, the superpower, the dark side of the superpower. So we just have to watch out and be careful. We've got to have you back, Vikram. We could talk for hours and hours and hours. I know there's so much more that we can talk about. But I want to direct everybody to what you have going on. And the thing that stood out to me most when I was doing a little research on you is you guys actually have an active deal that you're raising capital for right now, don't you?
Yeah. So I think the two ways, if your audience would like to follow me, I have a YouTube and a podcast. So please follow me there if you want more information or content like what we're talking about. Number two, if you want to work with me, vikramraya.com is my website for that. And if you want to invest with us, then vikingmultifamily.com. And hopefully they'll all be in the Brett's show notes.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. We'll put all that in there. Right before we go to, I've got one more question for you. Before that, though, I noticed Atlanta was kind of like the starting point for the portfolio. And then there's a couple here on the top that I'm very interested in, South Bend and Granger. That's close to, the Notre Dame area.
That's right.
What to you stands out about that particular state and that market?
Yeah. So when you get good at one market, that's great, but then you still want to diversify, if that's your goal. Either you can diversify within assets, like instead of multifamily, you can do outside of multifamily. But if you decide to specialize in one asset class, then maybe that city, state, or MSA may not be enough and you want to explore other ones. And so you want to go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. And so Atlanta, now we're celebrated, I would say. But when we get started, man, there's so much competition in one city. It's crazy. And so, man, we were viewed as one of the top buyers in Indiana because there's not as much people looking there. And we were finding higher quality assets at higher cap rates, which is usually good for multifamily. And the returns were phenomenal. And we were able to win bigger deals even. And so that's why we started exploring there. And now we have a 400 unit in South Bend, right next to Notre Dame, across from a hospital. That's called Elevate on Main. And then we just finished a deal just a couple of weeks ago called, it's going to be called Elevate Park 33. And that's in the same submarket, the South Bend submarket. And again, we got a 2018 deal at a 6 cap. It's like an A-class luxury, super high-end deal at a 6 cap, which is usually very difficult to get across the country.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that stuff, man. I think that's awesome. And again, if the listeners are interested in that is Viking Capital, right? Viking Multifamily.
Viking, yeah. Our company is Viking Capital. VikingMultifamily.com is our website. We actually have a new deal we just launched from in Atlanta called Stewart's Mill. They're happy to learn more information, get on our newsletter, and just be part of our ecosystem there. If you want to learn more about just high performance and coaching and just being the best version of yourself, you can go to my main website, vikramraya.com, VikramRaya.com.
Awesome. And we'll have all of this in the show notes for sure. One last question. We're definitely going to have you back. We'll have to get this on the books, have you back. If you could go back 10 years, and you were standing beside somebody that was similar to you, similar life path, similar family, similar culture, all of that stuff, what would you tell them?
Two things. I would tell them, don't listen to anyone who hasn't done where you want to go. And number two, create a powerful morning routine where you create more free time for yourself to work on self-development and mind expansion and knowledge acquisition. And it's knowledge acquisition that's of high utility. Being the best fantasy expert on football may not give you another 6-figure income. So while my friends were doing fantasy football, guys trips, and traveling the world, I was grinding. I was hustling. I was learning. I was creating new skill sets, relationships, and different versions of myself.
Beautiful, beautiful. Do what others won't do now so you can do what they can't do later. That's the perfect line for that. And man, that's just wonderful information. And I second that. And those are the topics I think that we could even jump into on the next show. So Vikram, thank you so much for your time today, man.
Brett, thanks, man. It was awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been a blast. To the listeners out there today, thank you for your time. As always, thank you for your attention. Hey, I know that a lot of you out there right now are looking for potential opportunities, and it's very interesting to see a current offering in today's market. So go ahead, take a look at the website, reach out to Vikram, because if it's not this deal, hey, let's make it the next deal. Let's make it the next one. Start surrounding yourself with the people, just like Vikram said, that are doing what you want to do. And that's the difference. That's where you take this seed of curiosity, this little seed of knowledge, and turn it into wisdom is by action. And this is a perfect action. Go look up Vikram, reach out to him. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions for us, info@physicianwealthsystems.com, and we'll catch you on the next show.